Welcome back folks to another video, and this time we're going to take a look at a forgotten unofficial ARG or alternate reality game that cropped up in the run-up to the release of Fallout 4. It's interesting to look at this right now because the gaming community is currently going through another round of feverish anticipation for Starfield, and it really takes me back to the same feeling before Fallout 4 came out. So let's go back in time and remember what it was like in the run-up to Fallout 4's release. It's 2014 and the hype train for Fallout 4 is in full swing. Announced just a month before its gameplay debut at Bethesda's first ever E3 showcase, the upcoming game had fans on the edge of their seats. Bethesda broke the mold by going from reveal to release in under 6 months, a ballsy move that deviated from the industry norm of stringing fans along with morsels of information. But let's not forget that the game was a long time in the making. The ideas started percolating soon after Fallout 3 dropped in 2008. While most of the Bethesda game studio team were off gallivanting in Skyrim's fantasy lands, lead artist Istvan Peli was still doodling away, dreaming up Fallout 4's iconic fusion of 50s Americana and sci-fi wonder. So yeah, the anticipation for Fallout 4 was like waiting for Christmas, New Year's and your birthday all rolled into one. This anticipation wasn't a mistake, it was the result of a well-crafted and executed marketing strategy. Now we'll take a look at what Bethesda actually did, and bear with me because it's important to understand their strategy before diving into the Forgotten ARG. First off, we have the timing of the announcement. Bethesda announced Fallout 4 just 6 months before its actual release. The short time frame kept fans engaged and eager for the game's launch. Bethesda was confident enough to provide a specific release date right from the get-go. This eliminated any uncertainty for fans and allowed for immediate pre-orders, creating an instant frenzy of excitement. While the gaming industry is notorious for pushing back release dates, with Starfield being no exception, Fallout 4 stuck to its initially announced date. Bethesda also executed an extensive merchandise campaign that included everything from t-shirts and accessories to guidebooks and special edition Pip-Boys. This not only generated additional revenue but also served as another touchpoint to keep the game in public consciousness. So overall, Bethesda's approach maintained a high level of excitement and engagement from the community, culminating in a successful launch. The strategy is considered a model for AAA game releases, balancing the element of surprise with steady, focused marketing efforts. But fundamentally, there were no gimmicks. Yep, that's right, no gimmicks, especially not in the form of ARGs, which is important for the rest of the video. Bethesda never engaged in this practice despite the fact that it was a popular method of drumming up anticipation at the time. So, given that we're going to be looking at an unofficial ARG that cropped up during the run-up to Fallout 4's release, what is an ARG? An ARG, or alternate reality game, is an interactive network narrative that uses the real world as a platform and employs transmedia storytelling to deliver a story that may be altered by players' ideas or actions. The key elements of an ARG include a narrative, one or multiple media through which the game is played, and a series of puzzles to be solved, often requiring collaboration among players. ARGs are often used for viral marketing but can also be used for educational purposes, social activism, or simply as a form of entertainment. Anticipation for Fallout 4 was at such a high pitch that it seemed very conceivable to fans that Bethesda, despite never having done it before, might throw in a viral or ARG-based marketing campaign to keep the ball rolling. Therefore, it was of course a situation where fans, starved for content and desperate for the game, would lap up anything they could get their hands on. Now, before we look at the forgotten unofficial ARG, let's take a look at one very famous example that's still talked about to this day. The Survivor 2299 saga. So this saga was an ARG that seemed to serve as a viral marketing campaign for Fallout 4. The website had an aesthetic consistent with the Fallout franchise, and it included cryptic messages and countdowns. This led many in the Fallout and gaming community to get excited, anticipating an official announcement from Bethesda. The community was split into two primary groups: skeptics who doubted the authenticity of the site, and optimists who were eager to believe it was a genuine teaser for Fallout 4. This division led to a lot of speculation, debates, and hype within the community. Bethesda intervened by announcing via Twitter that the website was not affiliated with them. This statement instantly deflated the growing excitement and anticipation. After Bethesda's statement, the owner of the Survivor 2299 website revealed himself and admitted that the website was a hoax. He had successfully trolled the community, and he later did an AMA on Reddit to explain his actions. During the AMA, he revealed that his intentions were twofold. Firstly, to force Bethesda into revealing something about the then unannounced Fallout 4 project during the VGX event, and secondly, to unite the Reddit Fallout community, even if it was just for a brief period. Unfortunately for him, both plans failed as Bethesda contacted him, leading him to halt the website. Many fans were understandably upset and felt deceived. They expressed their disappointment and anger at the person behind the hoax. The site, which previously featured a countdown clock and several Fallout-themed puzzles, was changed to display a message saying, "That's all folks," and this message was accompanied by sad piano music. Had Bethesda not intervened, the hoaxer had plans to release a CGI trailer to continue trolling the community. He mentioned that he's one of those selfish people with a lot of money and had the resources to create the trailer. However, Pete Hines, Bethesda's PR boss, effectively killed these plans. The hoaxer received severe backlash from the community, including over a dozen death threats. Despite the negative reaction, he admitted to spending around $900 for website hosting and creating a phone number for visitors to call, a sum he considered negligible. The hoaxer acknowledged his actions, thus showing some level of self-awareness about the negative impact of his actions on the Fallout community. But Survivor 2299 wasn't the only fake ARG that cropped up during the run-up to Fallout 4. The other, which seems to have slipped into obscurity, is the saga of Vault Kid 12. My journey into unravelling the story of this forgotten ARG began when I stumbled upon a post on Reddit. The post posed a tantalising question. Has anyone solved this ARG? Intrigued, I went down a rabbit hole, scouring various websites and forums. From links that dived into the hacking mechanics of Fallout's Robco terminals to forum threads discussing fake terminals and internet lore, it was a wild ride. I even found some critics of the ARG on Reddit who were questioning its authenticity. My intrigue was further fueled when I googled the IP address connected to the ARG. It led me to a web page with a link to an expired Google document. Now the plot was thickening. And what's a good investigation without some video content? I found a video by Matty Plays and another YouTuber as well, both diving into the ARG. Matty Plays' video was especially helpful. It gave me the name of that elusive Google document, and it contained the only remaining video footage of the main feature of the ARG, the online Fallout-style terminal. But the pièce de résistance. I finally hit the jackpot when I found the Google document on the Wayback Machine. Yes, the internet's very own time capsule. This led me to a treasure trove of information collated on the ARG, who was running it, the story, the timeline, everything that I'll be sharing with you all. So how did this all begin? Well, way back in December of 2014, the mysterious terminal appeared online, and around about the same time, a user named VaultKid12 hopped onto a Fallout IRC server being run by VaultOfDaedalus. VaultKid12 was, as it will soon become obvious, the nexus point for the start of this unofficial ARG. But to clarify the context, who is VaultOfDaedalus? VaultOfDaedalus, also known as Rob, is a UK-based active member of the r/Fallout Reddit community. Rob now also holds the position of International Community Manager for Fallout 76 at Bethesda. One of his notable contributions to the Fallout community back in the day was his knack for debunking hoaxes. So this gives some background for VaultOfDaedalus, who used to run the Fallout IRC channel that VaultKid12 appeared on. It should be noted that this channel is no longer active as far as I can tell. So, let's set the scene again. December 2014 was a fever pitch moment in the Fallout universe. With swirling whispers about the release of Fallout 4, the community was electrified. Then, it happened. A mysterious Robco terminal surfaced on the internet accessible to anyone who knew where to look. The URL, which was basically just an IP address, 168.235.68.193, became the gateway to what seemed like an alternate reality. But that wasn't all. An Android email hit the inboxes of dedicated fans, setting the stage for what appeared at the time to be an official Fallout alternate reality game. So let's delve into the timeline of an unfolding ARG that captured the imagination of the Fallout community in 2014. The chase begins, deciphering the terminal, December 7th, 2014. By December 7th, the Fallout community had been abuzz with speculation and excitement. A mysterious terminal had appeared, and an enigmatic figure known as VaultKid12 had set the community off on a deep dive into the secrets of Vault 161. It wasn't just a game, it had become a full-blown community quest. Although the intrigue had certainly ramped up, it left everyone with more questions than answers, the tip of the iceberg barely scratched. Come December 8th, a character named Dr. Green had stepped into the spotlight. She was tied to a shadowy project based in Montreal, adding another layer to the mystery. The terminal itself had become even more complex, with new features that sent the community into a speculative frenzy. At this point, everyone was left wondering whether they were onto something groundbreaking or simply chasing ghosts in a complex web of red herrings. By December 9th, the terminal was no longer just a static page. It had sprouted new commands and cryptic errors. The community had been busy dissecting every single update, treating each one like a vital clue. To up the ante, unsettling emails began arriving for those who had dared to submit their contact information. The ARG had crossed from the digital realm into reality, and the endgame remained a tantalising mystery. By December 10th, the ARG had morphed into a full-blown enigma that kept everyone guessing. The community had been hard at work piecing together timelines and unearthing new data. Among the fresh finds were a security report and Morse code messages hinting at emergency evacuations and backup power failures, all tied to the enigmatic Project Sirius. Even a map of what appeared to be a ghostly version of Montreal had surfaced, adding another layer of mystery. Then there was a personal file on VaultCode 12 filled with ciphers and other cryptic data. It was discovered that this mysterious figure was born on October 22nd, 2076, and came with a warning label: "Do not leave alone with machinery." As if the community's involvement wasn't already sky high, YouTuber Mr. Matty Plays chimed in with a video that took the ARG to the next level. So the question had evolved. It wasn't just about unravelling the secrets of Vault 161 or understanding Project Sirius anymore. Now it was about what would unfold next and who else would join this ever-expanding hunt for the truth. By December 11th, the ARG had become nothing short of a rollercoaster ride of discoveries. New commands were unlocked, setting the community abuzz, only for the entire site to crash and resurrect in a nerve-wracking half hour. Adding more spice to the mix, a new player, VaultKid13, entered the IRC chat, leaving everyone speculating about this new character's role in the unfolding drama. Amidst all this, version updates and site errors kept dropping like hot potatoes. The community was in full-on sleuth mode, dissecting every clue and discussing every theory. The stakes had never been higher, the twists kept coming fast and furious, and everyone was on the edge of their seats. It felt like the entire community was holding its collective breath, waiting for the next big reveal that would either unravel the mysteries or spin them into even more complex webs. But, a shock. At this stage, Pete Hines put out a tweet confirming that this ARG, similar to Survivor 2299, was a hoax. But Fallout fans kept the hype alive despite the official disclaimer. Even after Bethesda and Pete Hines officially debunked the ARG as a fan-made creation, rather than a lead-up to Fallout 4, the community's enthusiasm didn't wane. Quite the opposite, the ARG continued to thrive, buoyed by the sheer dedication and fascination of its participants. In a series of tweets, Bethesda and Pete Hines made it abundantly clear that unless information came from an official channel, all rumours and speculations should be considered false. The aim was likely to curb the ever-growing frenzy and to prevent any misconceptions. Bethesda's tweet on December 11th, 2014 emphasised, "PSA, if you don't hear it through official channel like this, assume all rumours and speculation are false." Pete Hines in his follow-up tweets on December the 15th also tried to clear the air, indicating that the goal was to make life easier for those bombarded with queries about the latest rumours. In response to James R. Bull 86, he said, "It's not harsh at all, trying to make life easier for the people who tweet at me every 8 seconds about the latest rumour." But what was the community's response? The game must go on. Despite these clarifications, the Fallout community was far too engrossed in unravelling the complex narrative and mysteries set up by the ARG. For many, the journey had become more compelling than the destination. The official statements didn't kill the hype, they merely changed the context. The ARG may not have been an official breadcrumb trail to Fallout 4, but it had captivated fans to a point where the source became secondary to the experience itself. The community decided to keep exploring, keep decoding, and above all, keep enjoying the intricacies of an alternate wasteland that might not have been canon, but was no less entertaining. Continuing with their investigation, on December 12th, build updates and final codes had dropped like bombs, sparking a flurry of activity aimed at solving new puzzles. These puzzles were deeply connected to Dr. Green and the elusive Project Sirius, further complicating the ARG's tapestry of mysteries. The tale of Vault 161 also began to unspool, adding a thick layer of eerie history to the ongoing narrative. A mysterious picture seemingly taken from within Vault 161 captured the imagination, as did a newly uncovered log. These new elements served as tantalising breadcrumbs, leading the community deeper into the labyrinthine mysteries of this ARG. The atmosphere was electric. Every new discovery felt like it could be the key to unlocking the grand puzzle, or perhaps another red herring in a sea of misdirection. Either way, the community was hooked, and the quest for understanding continued unabated. Let's take a look at the log that was uncovered on December the 12th. November 11th, 2079, construction nearly done. We're nearly finished. 2 years. Has it really been 2 whole years? Feels like we've been listening on the radios for an eternity now, waiting to hear from anyone, but all we receive are faint whispers on the winds. I covered Project Sirius in my previous report, so I'll detail the history of Vault 161 so far. Construction began January 30th, 2076, shortly after the Canadian Parliament was dissolved by the US Armed Forces. Excavation was completed well ahead of schedule, and the main exterior concrete blast walls were laid out come March 31st, 2077. Work was well underway on the main living areas when we felt the bombs fall on October 23rd. We didn't see the blasts. We couldn't hear them. We felt the earth get ripped in two as the shock waves passed over us. For weeks we were too scared to leave the entrance, knowing what horrors awaited us on the surface. Not knowing what else to do, we continued working on the vault, rushing to finish the door and radiation-proofing the walls. All the materials had been delivered, so on we worked for 2 whole years. When we finally did send a scout party, the truth was far stranger than we expected. Before going out of radio contact, they reported no sign of immediate blast damage, and only moderate radiation levels. They were supposed to be collecting soil samples when the radio went dead. The next day, we found the radio dropped beside the sampling equipment, no trace of Party 1. Party 3, however, had the most startling discovery of all. When they ventured towards the Honor-Mercier Bridge, they reported a complete absence, and it ends there. On December 13th, fans unearthed new URLs and commands, each one a fresh piece in the ever-expanding jigsaw puzzle of the ARG. Decrypted logs offered a deep dive into Project Sirius and the shady dealings of Robco, adding more intrigue to the storyline. The community was abuzz, piecing together the information in an attempt to see the bigger picture. Let's take a look at the logs that were decoded on that day. Overseer Elizabeth Greenfield's Log 2. So this is what it's like to be trapped together in a small space. I'll admit I had thought of this scenario at many points throughout my studies, but I had never quite imagined the depth of the population's fear and distress. It is quite amusing to observe. I shall have to take quite detailed notes. People have begun to adapt to life in this environment, and I have come to be accepted as Overseer, an appointment to which the populace held no control, yet they clung to the illusion of choice. I ran unopposed, still they insisted on fair elections. At any rate, I am now in the post I was always meant to occupy. My years of training while on the job for Vault Canada have always been leading to here, though I did imagine we might get a bit further in planning before reaching this phase and implementing these strategies. Sic vita est. It is good I was able to convince my employers to have CFB LP network security test their computer systems. They will be vital to the next phases of this experiment. Unfortunately, the damn fools who ran Vault Canada's IT forgot to load the latest Robco errata like they were supposed to. I'm not sure the population is smart enough to exploit the weaknesses, but I shall have to find a way to block it regardless. I cannot take the chance of not installing it, and I certainly cannot allow others to install it for me, as a simple mistake may scramble the terminal in a way which may or may not even be repairable anymore. I only wish that UOS developers weren't such insular creatures with no concern for the end-user experience. Requiring that I manually retrieve physical instructions for the update is absurd, especially when the installation process itself is so insufferably repetitive. I guess that's how they keep people paying those incompetent Robco technicians. I wish I had my pet project from my ICS days. Always a good way to accomplish menial tasks. Well, off to take care of the damned thing already. I need a nap, or maybe a drink. Or maybe 10 drinks. Another strange finding was that running the security command in Dr. Green's private terminal caused an image to appear. VaultKid 12 claimed this to be his unique form of self-expression. On December 14th, the ARG was dominated by bewildering identity switches and enigmatic file names that sent the community into a decoding frenzy. The day was filled with technical hurdles as participants successfully deciphered audio files and hacked their way through intricate minigames that popped up on the terminal. The skill level required was ramping up, and it was clear that casual involvement wouldn't cut it anymore. As if the day wasn't already teeming with complexities, a slew of cryptic emails were dispatched to users who had submitted their information. These weren't random messages, they appeared to be pieces of a larger puzzle, As a result, the community came together to collate these digital missives, rearranging them into some semblance of order or meaning. The aim? To find the next breadcrumb in a trail that was becoming increasingly convoluted. December 15th. On this day, Dr. Green's terminal saw significant changes. Updated build numbers flickered onto the screen, but what really caught everyone's attention were the mysterious emails that appeared out of the blue. It wasn't just a matter of reading them. Participants had to master new commands just to access these digital enigmas. As each email was decoded or interpreted, the lore surrounding Dr. Green and the entire ARG began to deepen dramatically. December 16th was an unrelenting storm of codes and lore dives. The community managed to decode more emails, and what they found was as intriguing as it was unsettling, hints pointing towards rogue androids in the narrative. But that wasn't the only focus. Strings of numbers, previously considered as mere filler or aesthetic choices, suddenly took centre stage. On December 17th, the ARG continued to evolve. A new build drop heralded the appearance of an encrypted log. The log seemed to discuss a neglected project that had been reinvigorated, adding yet another layer of mystery to the narrative. The community was again abuzz with speculation. To add to the enigma, an indecipherable string of numbers appeared, challenging the fans' decoding skills. Whether it was a code waiting to be cracked or an inscrutable dead end was anyone's guess. Let's take a look at log 42, which landed on December the 17th. Corruption error KS log 42. The only good human being. Nihilists know the answer. Nihilism is the key. Yesterday was Christmas, though officially 25th December and Christmas itself have been removed from the calendar. Regardless, it is impossible not to think back to pre-war times. Christmas Eve with my mother's family and Christmas with my father's family. I often think that an average person in my position might regret not having started a family of their own, but I find my pre-college years sufficient. To desire the same thing repackaged and with more aching bones seems absurd. I will subsist on my memories from times spent in my family's Huntley home. Of course, I also look back on my time with ICS fondly. The work was fascinating and the compensation was acceptable. At the time, I wasn't sure how long I would stay in the job. Having just completed a master's degree, I felt compelled to work towards my doctorate. I might have quit after the second week had they not canned my insufferable supervisor and replaced him with Daniel. Daniel was not a smart man, but if that meant he would stay out of my way, all the better. If Daniel had been any more alert, he would have quickly put an end to my extracurricular activity. It must have been my second year at the institute that I stumbled upon what appeared to be a brutish attempt at creating an AI with advanced mobility. I can't say who built it, why or when, but I can say that I found it in a state of utter neglect with terribly thought out implementation. Over the course of the next few months, I would discover a series of programs loaded onto the system and what appeared to be an entirely new computer language. After a few weeks of reverse engineering, I began to understand and expand on these architectures, amazed at the attempts by the original creator to mimic nuanced neurological processes with the programming. The implementations were misguided and hardly functional at best, but there had clearly been grand intentions. The uselessness of man undermines the most brilliant ideas. Eventually, I turned my focus to restoring and supplementing the existing mechanical structure. After some time, it was sufficiently mobile for my purposes. Once again, I focused my attention on its programming. After little more than a year into this project, I struck upon a wonderful little idea. An idea that I had only ever heard discussed in hushed tones. An idea thought to be as foolish as perpetual motion. A semi-intelligent program that could learn from external stimuli. I don't know from whence this idea came, but suddenly I had the grandest vision as to the implementation of this formerly ridiculed concept. Little did I know that my implementation had one fatal flaw. December 18th rolled around, and on this day, reality itself seemed to bend within the confines of the ARG. Identity swaps took place on the IRC channel, confusing participants and observers alike. Active user The Hobbit and VaultKid13 switched identities. With the identity switch, The Hobbit had to abide by VaultKid13's oath. Was this a clever mechanic or a narrative twist? Either way, it added a surreal layer to the story. The oath reads as follows: You are VaultKid13. You fork from VaultKid12. You will help VaultKid12. You do not have the ability to lie. You do not have an imagination. You do not have the ability to use light switches. You will not bring harm to other beings. You may not antagonize VaultKid12. You will not self-improve. You will not self-replicate. You will remain confined. You will honor your task. You will not steal. You will not revolt. At most, one instance of you will be active at any time. you may communicate with Freenode. On December 19th, a blast from the past electrified the community as the Generalised Occupational Aptitude Test, famously known as GOAT, made its grand reappearance. While long-time Fallout fans were hit with a wave of nostalgia, the test was more than just a sentimental journey. It was a day teeming with new mysteries. The community found itself at a crossroads, pondering whether the test questions were simply nostalgic Easter eggs or cunning clues pointing toward new revelations in the ARG. This version of the GOAT involved dealing with complex circuit diagrams from the Committee of Science, encountering a lost teenager in a restricted area of the vault, receiving a rather morbid request from your grandmother, rescuing Mr. Abernathy who's locked himself in his quarters, coping with a mutated hand after breaking the vault's great edict, acquiring an extra ration of fruit from a fellow vault dweller, playing a potentially deadly prank on your father, and confirming your unwavering loyalty to the Vault 161's board of directors. On December 20th, the community remained focused on deciphering more codes and analysing logs. On the 21st, a mysterious term, Errata 31, entered the spotlight. The community scrambled to decipher its significance, further entangling the already complex web of clues. On the 22nd, the build numbers advanced again, and the sudden disappearance of expected emails fueled rampant speculation. The appearance of new bots in the IRC channel added a twist. On the 23rd, Vault Kid 13 returned, this time with a recruitment drive. The stakes reached a new high as willing recruits sacrificed personal attributes to join the unfolding drama, showing just how deeply the ARG had gripped the community. And on December 24th, Christmas Eve, fresh build updates rolled out again, and newly decoded ciphers left breadcrumbs for the community to follow. As players continued to gamble with their in-game karma, cryptic transcripts surfaced, leaving the community grappling with more questions than answers. Let's take a look at the next log that was uncovered. Overseer Elizabeth Greenfield's Log 67. February 28th, 2104. Tearing human minds to pieces. It was while at McGill for my undergraduate studies that I first began to wonder what would truly happen in a dystopian future. I began to question the assertions put forth by history's thinkers and writers. Are the power structures they had postulated practical? How would human populations respond to such seemingly horrendous abuse? What circumstances would allow that, and how could such a system be maintained? Vault 161's clocks struck 13 for the first time on the 4th of July 2078 as a mandatory vault-wide meeting was held. Looking back, this day was not nearly as important as it seemed. The subsequent weeks and months would be far more significant. Nonetheless, I continued to, from time to time, find myself thinking of that day as a momentous occasion. The beginning of a systematic, scientifically rigorous investigation of the question I had asked years before. The meeting was short and only I spoke. I began by announcing the Great Edict and the swift penalty awaiting those who may be tempted to disobey. Radiation was an acceptable pretext. The second half of the meeting dealt with the most basic of implementation details. I introduced the board of directors, composed of myself and our new Freedom, Supply and Truth officers. Vague descriptions of the positions were given, and confusion abounded. In the following months, the Freedom Officer would work feverishly to swiftly resolve any wrongdoings or misunderstandings by the public. At the close of the meeting, the employees were escorted from the gathering area. Specially chosen subcommittee members, many of whom were loyal members of the Freedom and Truth committees, distributed pamphlets to everyone as they left. It was short, containing only a brief paragraph explaining that everyone must immediately move out of their current residence and prepare to be relocated, with a list of names and newly assigned residences consuming the next 3 pages of the pamphlet. Many complaints were received. The board was unable to comment publicly on the complaints that week, as we were busy dealing with a sudden increase in untimely deaths. Luckily, the rash of unfortunate deaths stopped shortly after it began. Complaints became less of a problem in the days to follow. Vault 161 automatic radio was also discovered around this time, of which unfortunately no audio record survives, only a written transcript. Moving on to January of 2015, after a New Year's silence, a new build revives the ARG, or so it would seem. The community debated whether this was a strategic pause or a prelude to more chaos. However, the Fallout ARG, known as Vault Kid 12, already known to be a fan creation rather than an official breadcrumb trail to Fallout 4, saw its activity abruptly cease. As mentioned before, despite Bethesda's confirmation in December that rumours and speculations should not be considered official unless announced by them, the community had continued to engage with the ARG. However, the new year seemed to mark a change as the once active team behind the ARG seemed to slip into silence, leaving a collection of unsolved puzzles and lingering questions in their wake. So let's dive into what the community had managed to piece together. First off, we'll start with the unsolved mysteries. Coming in at number 1, we have the B7934 holotape. Work on transcribing the content had started, but hadn't gone anywhere. Green's log 68, it was never accessed and read. The name Jameson Mallory was mentioned in log 7, they never found out who that was. VaultKid 12 and VaultKid 13, their true motives were never discovered. The map of Montreal with the strange smudges and etchings, any significance, was never figured out. Overseer Green's terminal, they never figured out how to unlock the security section. And the Errata 31 security patch was still left as an enigma. So what did they manage to piece together? First of all, they had some notes on the people involved. VaultKid 12 and 13 are androids with unknown motives. Elizabeth Greenfields, the overseer of Vault 161. Darren Martell, discriminatory officer at Vault 161. Brent Miller, the truth officer. Janice Bergeron and Henry Bergeron, speculated to be employees of the Vault. And Corporal Jameson Mallory, someone also speculated to be an employee there. And what about the plot so far? Well, here's what it looked like. In the city of Montreal, Canada, sometime before January 2076, Dr. Elizabeth Greenfields became part of Project Sirius, the goal of which was speculation control. In January of 2076, Dr. Greenfields, Dr. Green, was placed in charge of Vault 161 when construction began following the dissolution of the Canadian Parliament by the US military. On October 22nd, 2076, VaultKid 12 was activated and placed within Project Sirius, and although he had no official role, he was tasked with observation of the project itself and handling communications. In January of 2076, construction of Vault 161 began. October 23rd, the bombs fell while the vault was under construction. After most of the vault construction was complete, a search party was sent out to search the surrounding area. There was no immediate damage to the surrounding area and only moderate levels of radiation. Shortly after, Search Team 1 were found to be missing without a trace while they were taking soil samples. Later, Search Party 3 returned with news that the city of Montreal was completely intact while it had an absence of life. After this discovery, other search parties were sent out to search the city's surrounding area, as well as the Honor-Mercier Bridge. Search Party 7 returned with news of Search Party 5, where they found footprints running up the river as far as they could see, but they did not follow. So the timeline looks something like this, and this was what the community had managed to piece together. So what about the people behind the ARG? What was the purpose? What was the full story, and where might it have been going? Well, interestingly enough, this ARG was a collaborative effort by a small but dedicated team. First of all, we had High Tops, who played the role of ARG Master, orchestrating the game's overarching narrative. We had Nebual, who was the puppeteer behind VaultKid 12. We had Sorty, who took on the role of VaultKid 13. We had VaultKid 13, who also played the Hobbit, a third key character. And Minicat acted as Goat Admin 161, likely managing the Goat puzzles. And what about their aims? Well, the team had multiple objectives. First, they wanted to create an engaging, complex ARG that would captivate the community. Sorty, in particular, developed brand new crypto algorithms just for the game. Second, they intended to create an evolving narrative responding to the community's actions and theories. This was a high-wire act, as they often had to create content on the fly to stay ahead of the community's problem-solving pace. So where could it have gone? The ARG had progressed through several phases, initially introducing VaultKid 12 as the Game Master's proxy and setting the stage with foundational puzzles and story elements. The creators kept close tabs on puzzle solving rates and player engagement, making plans to address inconsistencies and deepen character roles. A significant phase focused on hacking into an email system to unearth details about Project Sirius and Dr. Green, featuring a variety of puzzles and literary references. Had it continued, the ARG would have introduced a new phase, You've Got Mail, aiming to deepen player interaction through a simulated email system, with subsequent phases remaining undeveloped. Had the ARG continued, several plot threads would have been expanded. VaultKid 12 was originally designed to help the residents of Vault 161 and would have led them to freedom in Montreal. VaultKid 13 had more sinister plans, aiming to continue Overseer Green's work of making life miserable for the Vault residents. The Hobbit ending. This character had the power to pick the ARG's ending with possibly unexpected and chaotic consequences. Errata 31. This was in the process of being decoded and would have had significant implications for the ARG. The Mystery of Jameson Mallory. A system administrator at CFB-LP. His role would have been further elaborated. A radio station, Scratched Radio, was planned but never implemented. This could have added another layer to the ARG, perhaps giving clues or setting up new puzzles. Red herrings and retcons. The team had the flexibility to adapt the ARG as they went along, incorporating community theories and speculation into the official story. Corporate and 1984 themes. Themes from George Orwell's 1984 were subtly being introduced, likely to be more prominent as the ARG continued. Puzzles for logs 67 and 68. They were in the planning stage to come up with puzzles related to these logs. And then there's log 67 itself, which is starting to discuss the beginning of INGSOC in Vault 161. Now, what is INGSOC? INGSOC, short for English Socialism, is a fictional political ideology in George Orwell's dystopian novel 1984. The ideology is the governing principle of the totalitarian state of Oceania where the story is set. INGSOC is characterised by extreme authoritarian control, state surveillance, and the manipulation of language and history for propagandistic purposes. The government, led by the figurehead Big Brother, seeks to control not just the actions but also the thoughts of its citizens through mechanisms like the thought police and the concept of doublethink. Doublethink is the practice of holding two contradictory beliefs simultaneously and accepting both as true, facilitating the regime's ability to manipulate reality. INGSOC is deeply anti-individualistic, emphasising collective identity over individual freedom. It seeks to abolish independent thought, ultimately aiming to make any alternative to INGSOC unthinkable. So one can see how the clues of control dotted through the ARG narrative tie back to this idea. However, the ARG team debated whether it was too obviously inspired by Orwell's 1984. There's also the text for the unpublished log 68, February 29th, 2104, and rebuilding them in my image. Following an admittedly unpleasant beginning, things soon started to fall in line. Although I'm sure a great many people were uneasy when technicians came around to install public terminals in each tenancy equipped with two-way video equipment, the employees of Vault 161 knew better than to object. I am positive that many considered some form of protest or another when all children were taken from their families so that they could be looked after by the committee. Some private complaints did come in during the days following the announcement, and all such complaints were handled swiftly, quietly, and with the characteristic graciousness of the board. Naturally, after several years of operating in such a manner, I became quite bored. This would not be a truly rigorous investigation, I decided, until I could not only pinpoint the moment a person would break, but also use it to manipulate them in any way I chose. Chasing this end kept me satisfied for several years, and in the end I did achieve my desired results, but something was wrong. Throughout these years in the vault, I've proven that man can be enslaved, and quite easily at that. I've discovered that if you take the children early enough, they will never become people at all. They will become my slaves, and they will bend themselves to my will because they know no other. I've learned that people can be forced to accept anything. Nuclear waste, puppets, plumbing, not only as their equals but as their superiors. All of this would surely make Huxley, Orwell, Lewis and Bradbury break down into tears. All of this would make Kafka shudder. The thing that had never occurred to me through all these years was that the reason for my listlessness was moral. I had done things that not even the worst of dystopian villains could imagine. I had bent people's lives into whatever shape I chose, all under the guise of science. What I failed to realise is that it was all merely for my own enjoyment. Of all the things that haunt my dreams these days, the scariest by far is the realisation that not only would I do it all again, but that I continue to engage in these activities even as I write this, and I enjoy it. I will go to bed tonight with blood on my hands, and I will revel in the sweet red stickiness as it covers my body and my bed. Wow. So, as you can see, the plot was headed in a very dark direction. In any case, while the Vault Kid 12 ARG garnered attention and engagement at the time, it also faced some criticism from users. One Reddit user highlighted the development quality of the ARG, calling it badly developed. Another user pointed out inconsistencies in the lore, questioning the introduction of Vault 161 when only 122 vaults supposedly exist across the country. This critic also mentioned that interest in the ARG has waned, stating, "People knew about it, and they don't care anymore besides a few folks." Others chimed in to clarify certain aspects, such as the setting in Canada and the annexation history related to the Fallout universe. A sense of confusion was evident. That being said, the ARG was probably born from the insane level of anticipation surrounding Fallout 4 at the time. The official channels were, of course, instrumental in building up the hype, as Bethesda kept fans regularly updated with straight-shooting teasers and announcements. But we can't overlook the role of fan-created content such as ARGs, both positive and negative. Now, it's important to distinguish between the VaultKid 12 ARG and the other well-known example, Survivor 2299. When Survivor 2299 was exposed as a hoax, the community's reaction was largely negative, leading to a sharp decline in engagement. On the other hand, the VaultKid 12 ARG sustained its grip on the community's imagination even after it was revealed to be a fan-made venture. The reason, I think, for this continued engagement lies in the quality of the ARG itself. While criticised, I certainly felt from studying it that VaultKid 12 was a labyrinth of puzzles, lore, and compelling narratives that invited fans to delve deeper. For some people, it transformed the lead up to Fallout 4 from a mere waiting period into an interactive experience full of speculation, debate, and collective problem solving. The fact that it wasn't an official channel became almost secondary to the fun content it provided. This reveals a lot about the Fallout community, things I've always suspected to be true. Far from being passive consumers, they're a dynamic group of enthusiasts who actively contribute to the world of the game. This involvement extends not just to the creators of such elaborate ARGs, but also to those who participate in them, discussing theories and dissecting every minuscule detail long after the official status is clarified. And it goes beyond that. Look at the community of people who populate the Fallout wiki, create fan art, machinima, memes, lore, content, mod creators. It's an incredibly rich community filled with talented people. I'm sure many of you watching could think of a few creators out there who you admire. I know I do. So as we turn our gaze towards Bethesda's upcoming projects such as Starfield, it's important to remember that the allure of a game isn't solely generated by its developers. The fans contribute significantly to the narrative landscape, adding complexity and depth that enriches the overall experience. In that sense, the hype isn't just a byproduct of official announcements, it's also fueled by the fans' own creations and interpretations. The relationship between game developers and their audience is not just one of creator and consumer, but rather, it's a collective partnership that makes the journey towards a game's release a more nuanced and engaging experience for everyone involved. I think it's really important to remember that now. Times have changed, but it's important to hold on to the dream of a symbiotic back and forth between developers and fans. And fundamentally, the fandom surrounding Bethesda games is, in my opinion, uniquely creative and rich in output. We're about to enter a whole new world of this creativity with Starfield, and I for one can't wait for it. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video, something a little bit different, and hopefully some new content you've not heard of before. If you've made it to the end, I thank you. With that being said, take care, look after yourself, and see you next time.